The first thing Arya noticed about the Alpha King's ball wasn't the crystal chandeliers or the champagne fountains or the designer gowns that cost more than her yearly salary. It was the man in the corner that everyone was pretending not to see. He sat in a velvet chair near the windows, perfectly still, watching the crowd with eyes like liquid silver. Beautiful in a way that made her chest tight, sharp jaw, dark hair that fell across his forehead, shoulders that filled out his tailored suit. But there was something else. Something that made the other wolves give him a wide berth, like he was furniture instead of a person. Prince Cade. She'd heard the stories. The broken one. The mute. The Alpha King's forgotten son. Arya adjusted the strap of her simple black dress and tried not to stare. She was here to work, not gawk at royalty. The Silvercrest Pack had hired her as an ASL interpreter for their deaf members. Good pay, respectable position, and absolutely no business getting involved with the royal family. But her hands moved before her brain caught up. Hello, she signed across the crowded ballroom, her fingers forming the simple gesture. Prince Cade's head snapped toward her so fast she thought she'd imagined it. His silver eyes widened, and for a moment, he just stared. Then, slowly, almost disbelieving, his hands lifted. You can sign. Arya smiled and made her way toward him, ignoring the curious glances from nearby wolves. Up close, he was even more striking, and even more isolated. An empty circle surrounded his chair like an invisible barrier. I'm the new pack interpreter, she said, signing as she spoke. Arya Winters. I know who you are. His signs were fluid, practiced, not the clumsy gestures of someone who just learned. You're the only person in this room who's looked at me in 3 years. That's ridiculous. You're right here. Exactly. His mouth curved into something too bitter to be a smile. I'm always right here. That's the problem. Arya pulled up a chair and sat down beside him, earning a sharp inhale from a passing server. So why does everyone act like you're invisible? Because I can't speak. Can't hear. Can't shift properly. He signed each point with precision. And because my stepmother prefers it that way. Queen Margot? The one and only. His expression darkened. She worked very hard to convince everyone I'm simple-minded. Brain damaged from the accident. Too broken to be worth anyone's time. Accident? Arya leaned forward. What happened? Cade's hands stilled. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was 12. There was a fire in the north wing. I got trapped. When they pulled me out, I couldn't hear anymore. Couldn't speak. My wolf was fractured. I'm sorry. Don't be. He met her eyes steadily. It wasn't an accident. The words hung between them, heavy and dangerous. Arya's pulse kicked up. You think someone hurt you on purpose? I know they did. His jaw tightened. The same night I lost my voice was the night my mother died. The true queen. Convenient timing, don't you think? Before Arya could respond, a cold voice cut through the air behind them. Well, well. How charming. Arya turned to find a woman in a silver gown watching them with ice-blue eyes. Queen Margot. She was beautiful in a sharp, calculated way, blonde hair swept into an elegant twist, diamonds glittering at her throat, smile that didn't reach her eyes. I see my stepson has found a new friend. Margot's gaze slid over Arya like she was evaluating livestock. How unexpected. Your Majesty. Arya stood and gave a small bow, her heart hammering. Miss Winters, isn't it? Our new interpreter. Margot's smile sharpened. I do hope Cade isn't bothering you with his stories. He has such an active imagination. Comes from spending so much time alone, I suppose. I'm right here, Cade signed sharply. Margot didn't even glance at him. You'll have to forgive him. He doesn't understand social cues very well. Brain damage, you know. Such a tragedy. Rage flared hot in Arya's chest. He seems perfectly lucid to me, Your Majesty. Something flickered in Margot's eyes, there and gone in an instant. How sweet. But I'm afraid you're not qualified to make that assessment. She turned slightly, and a tall, dark-haired man materialized at her elbow. Crown Prince Damien, if Arya remembered correctly. He had his mother's cold eyes and his father's commanding presence. Damien, darling, would you see that Miss Winters finds her way back to the main hall? I'm sure she has other duties to attend to. Of course, Mother. Damien's smile was all teeth. Miss Winters, if you'll follow me? It wasn't a request. Arya glanced back at Cade. His expression was carefully blank, but his hands moved once, quick and subtle. Be careful. She nodded and let Damien lead her away, her skin prickling with unease. They walked in silence through the crowd until they reached a quiet alcove near the gardens. Damien stopped and turned to face her, his smile gone. Let me be clear, Miss Winters. My brother is not well. Hasn't been since the accident. Whatever stories he's told you, about our mother, about the fire, they're delusions. Trauma responses. He seemed very certain. Of course he did. Damien stepped closer, and Arya fought the urge to step back. That's how delusions work. But I'd hate for you to waste your time on conspiracy theories. You're here to interpret for the pack, not play detective. I'm here to do my job. Good. His eyes glittered. Then I'm sure you understand that stirring up trouble for the royal family would be unwise. For your career. For your safety. The threat was clear as glass. Arya lifted her chin. Is that all, Your Highness? For a moment, Damien just studied her. Then he smiled again, cold and empty. Welcome to Silvercrest, Miss Winters. I do hope you enjoy your stay. He walked away, leaving Arya alone in the alcove with her racing heart and clenched fists. When she finally returned to the ballroom, Cade's chair was empty. But across the room, near the throne, Queen Margot was watching her with those ice-blue eyes. She leaned close to Damien, her lips barely moving. Arya didn't need to hear the words to know what they were discussing. Deal with her. Chapter 2. Arya's hands trembled as she unlocked her cottage door at 3 a.m. The ball had ended hours ago, but she'd walked the pack grounds until her feet ached, trying to make sense of the warning in Damien's eyes and the weight of Cade's secrets. She didn't sleep. When dawn broke gray and cold over the Silvercrest territory, she was already dressed and making coffee, her mind racing through everything she'd learned. A murdered queen. An assassination attempt disguised as an accident. A prince who'd spent years pretending to be less than he was. And a mate bond she absolutely could not afford to acknowledge. Her wolf had recognized him the moment their eyes met across the ballroom, that visceral, undeniable pull that every shifter dreamed of finding. But Arya had buried it deep, smothered it before it could take root. Prince Cade didn't need another complication in his life, and she didn't need the heartbreak of wanting someone who could never want her back. Who would look at a nobody interpreter when he was royalty? Even broken royalty. A knock at her door made her jump, coffee sloshing over the rim of her mug. Cade stood on her porch in running clothes, his dark hair damp with sweat, silver eyes cautious. He held up his phone, the screen displaying a message, "Can we talk?" Arya glanced around the empty street, then stepped aside. "Get in. Quickly." He moved past her with the fluid grace of a predator, and she caught his scent, pine and winter air and something uniquely him that made her wolf whine. She shut the door firmly and drew the curtains. "You shouldn't be here," she said, signing as she spoke. "Your brother made it very clear that I'm supposed to stay away from you." Damien makes a lot of things clear. Cade's expression was grim. "Most of them are lies." "Is it true? About your mother?" His hands stilled, then moved slowly. "My mother was Luna Queen for 20 years. Strong, respected, beloved by the pack. Margot was her lady-in-waiting, beautiful, ambitious, always watching. Always waiting. Arya sank into her chair, her coffee forgotten. What happened? My mother discovered something. I don't know what, she never told me. But I remember the last night I saw her alive. She came to my room, kissed my forehead, and said, "Be brave, my clever boy. No matter what happens, be brave and watch everything. They'll underestimate you if you let them." His signs were sharp with old pain. The next morning, she was dead. Tragic fall down the stairs, they said. Broken neck. And the fire? 3 months later. The night before my 13th birthday. His jaw tightened. I'd found letters hidden in my mother's sitting room. Letters proving Margot had been plotting with several council members to remove her. I was going to tell my father the next day. They tried to kill you. They succeeded in silencing me. He touched his throat, a ghost of a gesture. The fire was set deliberately. I was locked in from the outside. By the time the guards broke down the door, the smoke had destroyed my vocal cords and damaged my hearing. My wolf tried to emerge to save me, but the trauma fractured our connection. I can barely shift now, and when I do, it's agony. Arya's chest ached. But you survived. You're still here. Because I let them think they'd won. His eyes met hers, fierce and intelligent. I let Margot spread her rumors about brain damage. Let Damien treat me like a simpleton. Let the pack forget I existed. And while they stopped watching me, I watched them. You've been gathering evidence. For 8 years. He pulled out his phone and showed her a hidden folder filled with documents, photos, recorded conversations. Financial records showing payments to the council members who supported Margot. Witness statements from servants who saw Margot near my mother's chambers the night she died. Medical reports about my accident that don't match the official story. Arya scrolled through the files, her heart pounding. This was enough to destroy the Queen. Enough to tear the pack apart. Why haven't you shown this to your father? Because my father remarried Margot 6 months after my mother died. Cade's expression turned bitter. Because he made Damien his heir instead of me. Because he looks at me like I'm a mistake he's too guilty to fix. He won't believe me, he'll believe I'm delusional, just like everyone else does. Then what's your plan? I need someone they'll listen to. Someone credible, without royal complications. His hands moved carefully. I need you. The words hit her like a physical blow. Me? Cade, I'm nobody. I'm just an interpreter. You're more than that. He stepped closer, and she could feel the heat of him, the magnetic pull that made her wolf howl. You're smart. Observant. You see things other people miss. And you're not afraid of them. I saw that last night when you stood up to Margot. I'm terrified of them. But you did it anyway. His smile was small, genuine. That's the difference. Before Arya could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, lunch today. 1 p.m., Rosewood Restaurant. Don't be late. Damien. She showed it to Cade, who scowled. He's making his move. What move? The same one he always makes when something threatens our family's image. Cade's signs were sharp. Charm. Intimidation. Control. He'll try to romance you, make you dependent on him, and if that doesn't work, he'll make sure I disappear. He's done it before. Arya's blood ran cold. I have to go. If I don't show up, it'll make things worse. I know. Cade hesitated, then touched her hand, just his fingers against hers, but the contact sent electricity racing up her arm. Be careful. Damien's dangerous when he wants something. I can handle him. I know you can. His eyes held hers. That's why I came to you. After he left, Arya stood in her empty cottage and tried to breathe normally. Her hands still tingled where he'd touched her, her wolf pacing restlessly inside her chest. This was insane. She was getting involved in royal politics, conspiracy, maybe murder. She should pack her bags and leave Silvercrest before she got herself killed. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Cade's face, isolated, intelligent, desperately alone. She saw the boy who'd survived an assassination attempt and turned himself into a ghost to stay alive. She saw the man who'd spent 8 years gathering evidence, waiting for someone to trust. She wasn't going anywhere. The Rosewood restaurant was elegant and expensive, all white tablecloths and crystal glasses. Damien was already waiting when she arrived, looking devastating in a charcoal suit. He stood when he saw her, his smile warm and practiced. "Miss Winters. You look lovely. Your Highness." She let him pull out her chair, hyper-aware of the other diners watching them with curious eyes. "Thank you for the invitation. Please, call me Damien." He poured her wine without asking if she wanted any. "I wanted to apologize for last night. I may have come across as harsh. You threatened my career and safety. I'd call that more than harsh." He had the grace to look chagrined. "You're right. I was protecting my family, but I shouldn't have been so aggressive. Cade is complicated. Our mother's death and his accident left him fragile. I worry about people taking advantage of his condition. He doesn't seem fragile to me. That's because he hides it well." Damien leaned forward, his expression earnest. "He's been through trauma. Sometimes he says things, about conspiracies, about our mother being murdered, that simply aren't true. It's heartbreaking, but we've learned to manage it." Arya took a sip of wine to hide her expression. Damien was good, convincing, sympathetic, just the right amount of vulnerable. If she hadn't spent the morning looking at Cade's evidence, she might have believed him. "I understand," she said carefully. "You're looking out for him." "Exactly." His smile widened. "I'm glad you see that. And I have to admit, I'm impressed by your work with the pack. We've needed someone with your skills for a long time." The lunch continued in that vein, flattery, charm, careful questions about her background and her plans. Damien was feeling her out, trying to figure out if she was a threat or an asset. By the time dessert arrived, he'd moved closer, his hand resting casually near hers on the table. "I'd like to see more of you," he said. "Outside of work. You're fascinating, Arya." Her skin crawled, but she kept her smile in place. "I'm flattered, but I'm not really looking for anything right now." "Neither am I." His fingers brushed hers. "Just company. We could be good for each other." The threat was implicit: accept his attention, or face the consequences. Arya pulled her hand back gently. "I'll think about it." "Don't think too long." His eyes hardened just slightly. Opportunities like this don't come around often. She left the restaurant feeling sick, Damien's cologne clinging to her clothes. When she got home, she showered until the water ran cold, trying to wash away the memory of his touch. That's when she saw it. A dead bird on her doorstep. A crow, its neck twisted at an unnatural angle. And tucked under its wing, a folded piece of paper. Her hands shook as she opened it. The message was written in neat, precise handwriting. "Silence can be permanent." Arya stumbled inside and locked the door, her heart hammering. This was real. The threats, the danger, it was all real. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and texted the number Cade had given her. "We need to talk. Now." His response came immediately. "Council meeting in 10 minutes. East Wing, 3rd floor. Meet me after." She frowned. "Why are you going to a council meeting?" "Because they never notice I'm there." Arya waited in an alcove near the council chambers, her nerves stretched thin. Through the ornate doors, she could hear muffled voices, Alpha King Marcus's deep rumble, Margot's cultured tones, other council members she didn't recognize. And then she saw him. Cade, walking slowly down the hall with his eyes downcast, moving like someone who barely knew where he was going. A servant brushed past him without acknowledgement. A council member stepped around him like he was furniture. He was invisible. Cade slipped into the council chamber through a side door, and no one reacted. No one even looked up. He took a seat in the corner, his expression vacant, his hands folded loosely in his lap. But his eyes were sharp and focused, tracking every movement, reading every set of lips. Arya watched in amazement as the meeting progressed. Margot proposed new trade agreements. Marcus discussed border patrols. Council members argued about territory disputes. And through it all, Cade sat silently, absorbing everything, his brilliant mind cataloging every word, every gesture, every unguarded moment. When the meeting ended an hour later, the council members filed out, still not acknowledging the prince in the corner. Cade waited until they were gone, then stood and walked to where Arya was hiding. 8 years, he signed when they were alone. I've been in almost every major council meeting for 8 years. They discuss everything in front of me. Alliances, secrets, financial dealings. They think I'm too damaged to understand. That's brilliant, Arya breathed. And terrifying. I know things that could destroy half the council. His expression was grim. Including proof that Margot has been embezzling PAC funds and funneling them to council members who support her claim that Damien should be Alpha King instead of me. Your father doesn't know? My father doesn't want to know. The pain in his signs made her ache. He loved my mother, but marrying Margot was politically necessary. Making Damien his heir kept the peace. I'm just a reminder of everything he lost. Arya reached out without thinking and took his hand. The mate bond flared between them, hot and insistent, and she saw Cade's eyes widen. You feel it too, he signed with his free hand. Don't you? She wanted to lie. Wanted to protect them both from the impossible complication of being fated mates in the middle of this disaster. But looking into his silver eyes, she couldn't. Yes, she whispered. But it doesn't matter. Why not? Because you're a prince and I'm nobody. Because your family is trying to kill anyone who gets close to you. Because, her voice broke. Because you deserve better than someone who can't protect you. Cade's hands moved sharply. You think I'm the one who needs protecting? Someone left a dead bird on my doorstep tonight. With a threat. His expression turned murderous. Damien. Probably. I'm going to kill him. You're going to do nothing. Arya squeezed his hand. We're going to be smart about this. We're going to use that brilliant brain of yours to find a way to expose them without getting ourselves killed. Agreed? For a long moment, Cade just stared at her. Then, slowly, he raised their joined hands and pressed his lips to her knuckles. The gesture was old-fashioned, courtly, and it made her heart stutter. Agreed, he signed. But I'm not letting them hurt you. Then we better work fast. They stood together in the empty hallway, hands clasped, the weight of conspiracy and murder and an impossible mate bond settling over them like a shroud. Outside the palace windows, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. And in her office 3 floors above, Queen Margot smiled as she reviewed the security footage, watching the broken prince and the interfering interpreter who'd just signed their own death warrants. Chapter 3. Arya's cottage had become their sanctuary. Every evening after her official duties ended, Cade would appear at her door like a shadow, slipping inside before anyone could notice. They'd spend hours at her kitchen table, surrounded by his evidence files, planning their next move. Tonight, 3 days after the dead bird incident, she was teaching him advanced ASL variations when something caught her attention. She dropped her pen, and it clattered across the hardwood floor behind him. Cade turned before it hit the ground. Arya froze. You heard that. His hands stilled mid-sign. For a moment, she thought he'd deny it. Then his shoulders sagged, and he nodded slowly. How much can you hear? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Everything, he signed. I've always been able to hear everything. The room tilted. The poisoning. Destroyed my vocal cords. Nothing else. He stood and paced to the window, his back rigid. My mother figured it out within days. The doctors said I was completely deaf, but she tested me when we were alone. Whispered my name. Dropped things. I reacted every time. Why didn't she tell anyone? Because she was dying. Cade turned, and the anguish in his eyes made her chest ache. The poison they'd given her was slow acting. She had maybe 2 weeks left. She knew that whoever tried to kill me would try again if they realized they'd failed. So she made me a promise. Arya moved closer. What promise? That I would pretend. That I would let them think I was broken, deaf, mute, barely able to shift. That I would become invisible. His hands moved faster now, sharp with old grief. She said, "They'll underestimate you, my clever boy. They'll forget you exist. And while they're not watching, you'll learn everything. You'll find proof of who killed me. And when the time is right, you'll take back what's yours. Your birthright. The throne. My voice. My life." He closed his eyes. She died 2 days later. I was 12 years old, and I spent her last hours pretending to be deaf while she whispered instructions I was never supposed to hear. Do you have any idea what that's like? Listening to your mother die while pretending you can't understand her goodbye? Arya crossed the room and pulled him into her arms without thinking. He stiffened, then melted against her, his face buried in her shoulder. His whole body shook with silent sobs, 8 years of grief he'd never been allowed to express. She held him while he broke, whispering meaningless comfort against his hair, her own tears falling freely. The mate bond thrummed between them, desperate and raw, trying to heal wounds too deep for any magic to touch. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were red but clear. "I'm sorry. Don't you dare apologize." She cupped his face in her hands. "You've been carrying this alone for 8 years. You're allowed to break. I can't afford to break. Not now." But his hands were gentle as he signed. "Not when I'm so close." Close to what? Proof. He pulled out his phone and showed her a new file. "Margot's planning something big. I've been tracking her meetings, her communications. She's accelerating her timeline." Arya scrolled through the documents, financial transfers, encrypted emails, meeting notes. The engagement announcement. Exactly. Cade's expression turned grim. Damien's marrying Alpha daughter Selene Blackwood next month. It's a political alliance that will cement his claim to the throne. Once he's married into the Blackwood pack, my father won't be able to pass him over without risking war. So we have 1 month. Less. Because once Damien's engaged, Margot won't need to be subtle anymore. He met her eyes. Anyone who threatens their plans will disappear. Including you. A chill ran down her spine. Then we need to work faster. Smarter. We need a code. Cade pulled out a notebook and started sketching. Sign language that looks innocent to observers but conveys critical information. We can communicate in front of Margot and Damien without them knowing what we're saying. They spent the next 3 hours developing their secret language. Simple signs that meant complex things. Touching her ear meant danger, brushing hair back meant Margot's watching, a specific finger position meant meet me later. They practiced until the movements became second nature, until they could have entire conversations in plain sight. "This is brilliant," Arya said as they ran through another sequence. "You're brilliant. I've had a lot of practice being invisible." But his slight smile suggested he was pleased. "Can I ask you something?" She hesitated. "Why me?" "You could have approached anyone with this evidence. Why trust a stranger?" Cade's hands stilled. "Then, because you're my mate. I felt at the moment I saw you across that ballroom. And I knew, if there was anyone in this world who might believe me, who might see past what they've made me into, it would be you." Her breath caught. "Cade." I know you feel it too. The bond. He stood abruptly, putting distance between them. But I need you to know, I can't claim you. I won't. Why not? Because I'm broken, Arya. His signs were harsh now, angry. I can't shift without agony. I can't speak. I'm hiding like a coward while my mother's murderers live in luxury. What kind of mate would I be? What kind of alpha king? The kind who survived. She rose and closed the distance he'd tried to create. The kind who turned a nightmare into a strategy. The kind who spent 8 years gathering evidence instead of giving up. You're not broken, Cade. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. She caught his hands, forcing him to look at her. You're scared. Scared that you're not enough, that you can't protect me, that accepting this bond will make everything harder. But here's what you don't seem to get, I'm already in this. The bond or no bond, I'm not walking away. They'll kill you. Then we'll make sure they don't. She squeezed his hands. Together. That's how mates work, remember? We don't have to do this alone anymore. Cade stared at her, something raw and desperate in his silver eyes. His hands moved slowly. I don't deserve you. Too bad. You're stuck with me. The tension broke. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers, and for a moment they just breathed together. The mate bond settled between them, warm and right, like coming home. Then his phone buzzed. They broke apart reluctantly, and Cade's expression darkened as he read the message. Official announcement tomorrow. Margot's hosting a celebration ball for Damien and Celine. How romantic. She's making her move. After the engagement is official, she'll want to eliminate any threats. He looked at her. We need to be ready. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of secret meetings and coded conversations. They attended pack functions together, Arya interpreting while Cade sat silently, and to any observer they were just the translator doing her job. But their hands were always moving, always communicating in their private language. Margot met with council member Rhodes yesterday. Cade would sign during a dinner party. Money changed hands. Damien's asking questions about my background. Arya would respond at a pack run. He's getting suspicious. They gathered more evidence, documented more meetings, built their case piece by careful piece. And through it all, the mate bond grew stronger, more insistent, until Arya could feel Cade's emotions like they were her own, his determination, his fear, his carefully buried hope. But he never touched her beyond necessity. Never let himself get too close. It was driving her insane. The engagement celebration was everything Margot could have wanted. Elegant, expensive, crawling with influential pack members. Celine Blackwood was beautiful and cold, with ice blonde hair and calculating green eyes. She looked at Damien like he was a business transaction, which Arya supposed he was. The happy couple, she murmured to Cade as they watched from their usual corner. Celine knows exactly what she's getting into, he signed. Her father wants access to Silvercrest's territory. This marriage gives him that. Love match for the ages. About as genuine as Margot's smile. They watched Margot work the room, collecting congratulations and cementing alliances. She was in her element, beautiful and ruthless, every inch the queen. Looking at her now, it was hard to believe she was a murderer. Then her gaze landed on them, and her smile sharpened. She crossed the ballroom with liquid grace, Damien materializing at her side. Miss Winters. How lovely to see you. And Cade, dear, you look well. Cade's expression went carefully blank. His simple-minded look that made Arya want to scream. Your Majesty, Arya said politely. Congratulations on Prince Damien's engagement. Thank you. Margot's eyes glittered. I understand you've been spending quite a bit of time with my stepson. Teaching him sign language? Warning bells clanged in Arya's head. Just doing my job, ma'am. making sure all pack members can communicate. How dedicated. Margot's smile didn't waver. Though I do wonder if your time might be better spent elsewhere. We've hired you to interpret for our deaf members, not to entertain the princes. The insult was clear. Arya felt her wolf snarl, but kept her expression neutral. I interpret for whoever needs it. Of course. Damien stepped forward, his hand landing possessively on Arya's arm. Though Mother's right, you've been neglecting your other duties. Perhaps you should focus on the pack members who can actually benefit from your services. Cade's hands moved in their secret code, don't react. Not worth it. But Arya was done playing nice. She pulled her arm free and met Damien's gaze steadily. Prince Cade benefits from my services just fine. He's more intelligent than most people give him credit for. Margot's expression flickered, there and gone, but Arya caught it. Fear. Just a flash of it before the Queen's mask slammed back into place. Well, Margot said softly. I'm glad you think so. Though I should warn you, Miss Winters, women who get too involved with my family tend to disappear. It would be a shame if anything happened to you. The threat hung in the air like poison. Cade stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. He grabbed Arya's hand and pulled her toward the exit, moving faster than he usually allowed himself to in public. Behind them, she heard Margot's tinkling laugh. See? Brain damaged. Can't even control himself. They made it to an empty hallway before Cade stopped, breathing hard. His hands shook as he signed, she threatened you. Right in front of everyone. I noticed. This is my fault. I should never have involved you. Stop it. Arya stepped into his space. We've been over this. I chose to help you. I chose this. And now you're in danger. We're both in danger. That's not new. I can't lose you. His hands moved desperately. I can't lose anyone else. You won't. She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. We're going to win this, Cade. We're going to expose them and take back what's yours. Together. He stared at her, something breaking open in his expression. Then his hands were in her hair, and he was pulling her close, and his lips were on hers. The kiss was desperate, hungry, 8 years of loneliness and fear and hope poured into a single moment. Arya gasped and opened for him, her hands fisting in his shirt, trying to get closer. The mate bond ignited between them like lightning, and she felt the exact moment it snapped into place. Heat. Light. Connection so deep it was almost painful. She could feel everything, his fear, his desire, his bone-deep need for her. And underneath it all, his wolf, fractured and broken but still there, reaching for her own wolf with desperate joy. Mine, his wolf seemed to say. Finally mine. Cade pulled back, his eyes wide with shock. His hands moved slowly, the bond. I know. Her voice was shaky. I felt it. I felt your wolf. Mine responded. Wonder crossed his face. That hasn't happened in 8 years. My wolf has been silent since the fire, but just now. He recognized me. He recognized you. Cade pulled her close again, his forehead against hers. Arya, I. Footsteps in the hallway. They broke apart seconds before a servant rounded the corner, her eyes widening when she saw them. Your Highness. Miss Winters. The Queen is looking for you both. Of course she was. Cade squeezed Arya's hand once, their secret code for later, and they followed the servant back to the celebration. But everything had changed. The bond hummed between them, solid and real, and when Arya looked across the ballroom, she could feel Cade's presence like a second heartbeat. They'd claimed each other. In the middle of a conspiracy, surrounded by enemies, they'd found each other. And from the cold fury in Margot's eyes as she watched them return, she knew exactly what had happened. The Queen approached them with Selene Blackwood at her side. There you are. Celine was just saying how she'd love to meet Cade properly. After all, you'll be family soon. Celine's smile was sharp as glass. I've heard so much about you, Prince Cade. The Silent Prince. How quaint. Cade's expression remained carefully blank, but Arya felt his rage through the bond. He's quite remarkable, actually, Arya said. Very observant. You'd be surprised what he notices. I'm sure. Celine's gaze flicked between them. Though I understand he requires quite a bit of special attention. Must be exhausting for you, Miss Winters. Not at all. It's actually refreshing to work with someone so intelligent. Margot's smile turned brittle. Well, we wouldn't want to overtax you. Perhaps it's time we found someone else to handle Cade's care. Someone more appropriate. The threat was clear. They were going to separate them. Arya felt Cade's hand move against hers, their secret code, trust me. Then he did something he'd never done in public before. He pulled out his phone and typed a message, showing it to the group. Miss Winters is the best interpreter I've had. I would prefer she stay. Margot's eyes narrowed. Cade, dear, I don't think you understand. He typed again, I understand perfectly. I want her to stay. Silence. Everyone stared at the prince who'd just expressed a clear, coherent preference. Margot's mask cracked for just a moment, fear and calculation warring in her expression. Then Damien laughed, breaking the tension. Well, if my brother wants his interpreter, who are we to argue? He has so few pleasures in life. The insult hung in the air, but Cade didn't react. He just looked at Arya with those silver eyes that saw everything, that promised everything, and typed one more message. Thank you for understanding my needs. The double meaning wasn't lost on her. Or on Margot, who excused herself with tight smile. But Arya felt the shift in the air. They'd won this round, claimed each other publicly even if no one else realized it. The mate bond hummed between them, strong and sure. The real fight was just beginning. Chapter 4. Arya woke at dawn with Cade's voice in her head. Good morning, mate. She bolted upright in bed, her heart hammering. The words weren't spoken aloud. They resonated inside her mind, warm and clear and unmistakably his. Through the bond, she could feel his amusement at her shock. Cade? I'm in my rooms. 3 floors up, East Wing. A pause. I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about you. How is this possible? She pressed her hands to her temples, even though the voice wasn't causing pain. It was just so strange, so intimate. Mate bonds don't work like this. Completed mate bonds between alphas sometimes do. My mother told me about it once. She could communicate with my father this way. His mental voice grew softer. I never thought I'd experience it myself. Because you thought you'd never have a mate. Because I thought I was too broken to deserve one. The honesty in his thoughts made her chest ache. But here you are. In my head. It's the most incredible thing I've ever felt. Arya smiled despite herself. We need to test this. See how far it reaches. What we can do with it. Later. Right now, I just want to talk to you. A wave of warmth flooded through the bond. Do you know how long it's been since I could have a real conversation with someone? 8 years of signing, typing, writing notes, but this? This is like breathing again. Tell me something, she thought. Something you've never been able to say. The pause was longer this time. Then, I'm terrified. Every single day, I'm terrified that they'll figure out I can hear them. That they'll finish what they started. That I'll fail my mother. That I'll lose you before we even have a chance. His thoughts turned raw. And I'm so tired, Arya. I'm so tired of pretending to be less than I am. You won't have to pretend much longer. She pushed her own determination through the bond. We're going to end this. Together? Together. She felt his relief like a physical touch, and then he was showing her something through the bond, a memory of his mother, young and laughing, picking him up and spinning him around. The love in that memory was so pure it brought tears to Arya's eyes. She would have liked you, Cade thought softly. She always said I'd find someone strong. Someone brave enough to see me. I wish I could have met her. Me too. They stayed connected like that for another hour, sharing thoughts and memories and the simple comfort of not being alone. When Arya finally had to get ready for work, she could still feel Cade in the back of her mind, a constant, reassuring presence. This changed everything. At breakfast in the pack hall, Arya tested their new ability. She sat at her usual table while Cade remained in his corner, and she thought clearly, "Can you hear me?" "Perfectly." His voice was as clear as if he were sitting beside her. "This is going to be useful." "That's an understatement." She took a sip of coffee, keeping her expression neutral. "We can communicate during council meetings. I can feed you information, you can tell me what you're overhearing. We'll be unstoppable." She felt his grim satisfaction. Margot won't know what hit her. Across the room, Queen Margot herself entered with Damien and Celine. The blonde Luna-to-be looked even more intimidating in daylight, tall, elegant, with the predatory grace of a born alpha. Her green eyes swept the hall and landed on Arya with immediate, focused interest. "She's looking at you," Cade warned. "I noticed." Celine said something to Damien, who glanced at Arya and frowned. Then Celine was moving across the hall with deliberate purpose, her $200 heels clicking on the marble floor. "Miss Winters." Her voice was cultured, cold. "I don't believe we were properly introduced last night. I'm Celine Blackwood." "Luna Blackwood." Arya stood and offered her hand. "Congratulations on your engagement." Celine's handshake was firm to the point of painful. "How kind. I understand you've been working closely with Prince Cade." The way she said his name made it sound like a diagnosis. "That must be challenging." "She's testing you," Cade thought. "Careful." "It's rewarding, actually," Arya said evenly. "He's an excellent student." "I'm sure." Celine's smile was all teeth. "Though I have to wonder, is it appropriate for a pack interpreter to spend quite so much time with a member of the royal family? People talk, you know. Let them talk. I'm doing my job." "Of course you are." Celine leaned closer, and Arya caught a whiff of expensive perfume and something else, dark magic, old and powerful. "But here's some friendly advice, woman to woman. Don't get too attached. Cade is damaged. Sweet, perhaps, but ultimately useless. And women who waste their potential on lost causes tend to find themselves very disappointed." Rage flared hot in Arya's chest, amplified by what she could feel coming through the bond. Cade's fury at being discussed like he wasn't there, like he didn't matter. "Don't," she thought to him. "Stay calm." But to Celine, she said, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm exactly where I need to be." Something flickered in Celine's eyes, recognition, maybe, or suspicion. "How devoted. I hope it works out for you." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Winters?" "The archives are off-limits to non-essential personnel. Just in case you were thinking of doing any unauthorized research." The warning was clear. They knew she was digging. After Celine left, Arya felt Cade's thoughts like a caress. "Are you all right?" "Fine. But we need to move faster. They're on to us." "I know." A pause. "Meet me in the East Gardens in an hour. There's something I need to show you." The East Gardens were overgrown and forgotten, hidden behind the palace's old wing. Cade was waiting by a stone fountain, and when Arya approached, he pulled her into his arms immediately. "I needed to touch you," he thought. "To make sure you're real." She held him tight, breathing in his scent. "I'm real. We're real." He pulled back and signed as he spoke through the bond. "I've been thinking about what Celine said. About the archives being off limits. There's a reason they don't want you looking into the past. The doctor who treated you after the fire. Dr. Marcus Chen. He disappeared 6 months after my accident. No forwarding address, no contact information. Just gone. Paid off? Or silenced? Cade's jaw tightened. But before he vanished, he filed a report. It should still be in the medical archives. If we can find it. It might tell us exactly what they did to you. Aria's mind raced. But if the archives are being watched, then we need a distraction. Through the bond, she felt his plan forming. Tonight. There's a mandatory pack run. Everyone will be out in the forest. That's when you go in. What about you? I'll be your lookout. Our mental link works up to about 2 miles. I tested it this morning. I'll stay close enough to warn you if anyone comes. It was risky. Dangerous. Exactly the kind of thing that could get them both killed. Let's do it, Aria said. Cade smiled, the real smile that transformed his face, rare and precious. My brave mate. Your crazy mate. That too. He touched her face gently. But first, there's something else I need to show you. Somewhere I haven't taken anyone in 8 years. He led her through the gardens to a small door hidden behind ivy. Inside was a narrow staircase, dusty and dark, leading up into the palace's oldest wing. Where are we going? Aria whispered. My mother's chambers. They sealed them after she died, but I kept a key. The rooms were exactly as they'd been left, furniture covered in white sheets, curtains drawn, air thick with dust and memories. Cade moved through the space like a ghost, touching things gently, reverently. She loved books, he thought, stopping by a shelf. Used to read to me every night. Said the best rulers were the ones who understood stories, the power of narrative, of perspective. He reached behind a row of leather-bound volumes and pressed something. A hidden panel clicked open, revealing a small safe. I found this when I was 15. 3 years after she died. The combination was my birthday. Inside were journals. Dozens of them, bound in rich leather, filled with his mother's elegant handwriting. Cade lifted them out carefully, hands trembling. Have you read them? Aria asked. Every word. Multiple times. He opened the most recent one, dated just days before the Queen's death. This is what got her killed. Aria read over his shoulder, her horror growing with each page. The journals documented everything, years of observations, investigations, proof. Queen Margot hadn't been born a Luna. She'd been an Omega, the lowest rank in pack hierarchy. But she'd discovered something, some kind of dark magic, ancient and forbidden. Rituals that could artificially boost a wolf's rank, that could manipulate pack bonds, that could make an Omega appear to be a powerful Luna. She used blood magic, Cade explained. Sacrifices. My mother discovered she'd been killing pack members, Omegas, mostly, people no one would miss, and using their life force to enhance her own power. That's impossible. Blood magic has been forbidden for centuries. Because it works. His thoughts were grim. And Margot got very good at it. Good enough to seduce my father, to make the entire pack believe she was a true Luna. Even now, her false rank holds. She's maintained it for over a decade. Aria flipped through more pages, each revelation worse than the last. The Queen had documented everything, dates, locations, victims. She'd been building a case, preparing to expose Margot and have her executed for her crimes. This is what she found, Aria breathed. This is what got her killed. And almost got me killed too. Cade pointed to an entry from the day before the fire. She knew they were coming for me. She wrote it here. They know I told Cade about the hidden journals. Tomorrow night, they'll move against him. I've prepared him as best I can. My clever boy must survive. Tears burned in Aria's eyes. She knew she was going to die. She chose to protect me instead of herself. Cade's hands shook as he closed the journal. She could have run. Could have taken me and fled the pack. But she stayed to document everything, to make sure there would be proof even after she was gone. And you've spent 8 years gathering more. Adding to her work. Finishing what she started. He looked at Arya, silver eyes fierce. We have enough now. Enough to destroy Margot completely. We just need to present it to someone who'll listen. Your father. He's the only one with the authority to act on this. But he married her. Made her his queen. Chose Damien as his heir. Arya understood the problem. Admitting Margot's a fraud means admitting he was fooled. That his judgment was compromised. That he's been living with his wife's murderer for 8 years. Exactly. Cade's thoughts turned bitter. My father's pride is legendary. I don't know if he'll choose truth over his own ego. Then we make it impossible for him to choose anything else. Arya gathered the journals carefully. We go public. Present the evidence to the entire Pack Council at once. He won't be able to suppress it or sweep it under the rug. That's incredibly dangerous. So is doing nothing. She met his gaze. We're running out of time, Cade. Damien's wedding is in 3 weeks. Once he's married to Selene, Margot's position becomes unassailable. We have to move now. Through the bond, she felt his fear warring with his determination. Finally, tonight. We get the medical records. Tomorrow, we start planning how to present all of this without getting killed in the process. Deal. He pulled her close, and they stood together in his mother's abandoned chambers, surrounded by the evidence of conspiracy and murder, holding onto each other like lifelines. I love you, Cade thought suddenly, the words raw and real. I know it's fast, I know we barely know each other, but I love you. I think I started loving you the moment you signed hello to me. Arya's heart stuttered. She should be cautious. Should protect herself. Should remember that they were in the middle of a deadly game and love was a weakness their enemies could exploit. Instead, she thought back, I love you too. And we're going to survive this. Both of us. Promise? Promise. That night, while the pack ran through the forest under a full moon, Arya slipped into the medical archives. The room was dark and dusty, filled with filing cabinets that hadn't been updated to digital systems. She found the year of Cade's accident and started searching. How are you doing? Cade's voice was clear in her mind. He was positioned outside, in wolf form, or as close to it as he could manage, ready to alert her to danger. Found the right year. Looking for Chen's files now. She rifled through folders, her hands moving quickly. There, Dr. Marcus Chen, reports from 8 years ago. She pulled the file and started reading by flashlight. The initial report was standard: smoke inhalation, severe trauma to the throat, extensive damage to the vocal cords. But there was a second report, filed a week later, that made her blood run cold. Patient exhibits no signs of hearing loss despite official diagnosis. Responds to verbal cues when he believes himself unobserved. Recommend further testing. A handwritten note at the bottom, in different ink: disregard previous observations. Official diagnosis stands. Patient is completely deaf. Do not file addendum. It was signed by Queen Margot. Cade, I found it. She forced Chen to lie about your hearing. There's proof right here. Good. Get out of there. Now. Just let me photograph. Arya. Someone's coming. Get out now. She heard it then, footsteps in the hallway, moving fast. She shoved the files back into the cabinet and looked for another exit. There, a window, but 3 stories up. The door burst open. A figure in black, face covered, moved toward her with lethal intent. Arya's wolf surged, and she shifted partially, claws extending, ready to fight. The attacker was fast. Trained. They had a knife, silver, which would slow her healing. She dodged the first strike, kicked out, but they were already moving, the blade slicing toward her throat. Then the window exploded inward. Cade crashed through in a shower of glass, his shift incomplete and clearly agonizing, but his rage made him unstoppable. He slammed into the attacker with brutal force, and Arya heard bones crack. Run. He thought at her. Get to safety. Not without you. The attacker recovered and lunged at Cade with the silver blade. But Cade moved like water, fast, efficient, every motion precise. He caught the attacker's wrist and twisted, and the knife clattered to the floor. Then he had them in a chokehold, his strength shocking for someone who was supposed to be helpless. The attacker went limp. Cade held them for another moment to be sure, then let them drop. Are you all right? His thoughts were frantic as he pulled Arya close, checking her for injuries. Did they hurt you? I'm fine. You saved me. She stared at him. Those moves, you've been training. Every day for 8 years. In secret. He was already pulling off the attacker's mask. I knew I'd need to fight eventually. Just because I can't shift properly doesn't mean I'm. He stopped. They both stared at the unconscious face. It was one of Damien's personal guards. They sent someone to kill you, Cade thought, his rage palpable. Not scare you. Not warn you. Kill you. We're out of time. Arya pulled out her phone and photographed the medical files, the unconscious guard, everything. They're not going to wait anymore. We have to present our evidence now. Tomorrow. Tomorrow my father's hosting the pre-wedding council meeting. All the important alphas will be there. Through the bond, she felt his fear, his determination, his love. If we're going to do this, that's our moment. Then that's when we do it. She kissed him hard, tasting blood and desperation. Together. Together. They left the guard unconscious and fled into the night, the evidence secured, the deadline set. In 24 hours, they would either destroy Queen Margot and reclaim Cade's birthright, or they would die trying. The war for Silvercrest had begun. Chapter 5. The Alpha King's office was exactly what Arya expected: massive oak desk, wall of weapons from conquered territories, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pack lands. What she didn't expect was the raw fury in Marcus Silvercrest's eyes as he paced like a caged predator. An attack, he growled. In my own palace. On my Pack interpreter. Arya sat perfectly still in her chair, hyper-aware of Cade standing motionless in the corner, his vacant expression firmly in place. Through their bond, she could feel his tension like a coiled spring. Stay calm, he thought to her. My father's angry, but he doesn't know what to be angry about yet. The Alpha King was an imposing man, well into his 50s but still powerfully built, with gray threaded through his dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. Or at least, they used to miss nothing. Looking at him now, Arya wondered how he'd missed so much for so long. Miss Winters. Marcus stopped pacing and fixed her with that penetrating stare. Tell me exactly what you were doing in the medical archives at midnight. Research, Your Majesty. She kept her voice steady. Pack history. I wanted to better understand the context of the deaf community here, how they've been treated historically. In the middle of the night? I work during the day. Night is the only time the archives are quiet. She met his gaze directly. I didn't think I needed permission to access Pack records. You don't. Marcus resumed his pacing. What concerns me is that someone tried to kill you for it. My guard, one of Damien's personal men, attacked you with a silver blade. Why? Careful, Cade warned through their bond. He's testing you. Seeing if you'll implicate Damien. I don't know, Your Majesty. I never saw anything sensitive. Just medical records from years ago. What medical records? Her heart hammered. Various. I was doing general research. Don't lie to me, The Alpha King's voice cracked like a whip. That guard is in my cells right now, and he'll talk eventually. But I'm giving you a chance to tell me the truth first. What were you really looking for? Arya felt Cade's fear spike through the bond. They'd planned to present their evidence at tomorrow's council meeting, controlled and strategic. But if Marcus forced her hand now? The office door burst open. Queen Margot swept in, Damien at her heels, both of them looking concerned and perfectly innocent. Marcus, darling, what's this about an attack? Margot's eyes landed on Arya, cold calculation beneath the worried facade. Miss Winters, are you all right? I'm fine, Your Majesty. Thank the goddess. Margot moved to her husband's side, touching his arm gently. Marcus, I've been thinking. Perhaps Miss Winters should take some time away from the palace. For her own safety. These accusations about one of Damien's guards, it's all very upsetting. She's trying to get rid of you, Cade thought urgently. Damien stepped forward. Mother's right. Miss Winters has been under a lot of stress. Working late, spending time with. His gaze flicked to Cade. Perhaps a leave of absence would be beneficial. That won't be necessary, Arya said quickly. I'm perfectly capable of getting yourself killed, apparently. Marcus's tone was harsh. Margot may be right. Until we understand what's happening. Your Majesty, with respect, sending me away won't solve anything. Arya stood, channeling every ounce of courage she possessed. If someone in this palace wants me dead, they'll find a way regardless of where I am. The question you should be asking is why. Margot's expression flickered. Really, Miss Winters, you're being dramatic. Am I? Your stepson's guard tried to slit my throat. That seems fairly dramatic to me. Silence. Marcus studied Arya with new interest. You think it was intentional? Not just a guard gone rogue? Don't answer that, Cade thought desperately. Not yet. Not like this. But before Arya could respond, another voice cut through the tension. It was intentional. And I can prove it. Everyone turned. Celine Blackwood stood in the doorway, dressed in riding clothes, her blonde hair pulled back severely. But her expression wasn't cold anymore, it was calculating, strategic, almost friendly. Luna Blackwood. Margot's smile was brittle. What a surprise. Is it? Celine walked into the room with confidence. I think we all knew this moment would come eventually. Though I admit, I expected it to take longer. She looked directly at Arya. You move fast, Miss Winters. I'm impressed. What is she doing? Cade's confusion matched Arya's own. Celine pulled a folder from her jacket and handed it to Marcus. My father sent me here to investigate rumors of corruption in the Silvercrest Pack. Specifically, rumors that Queen Margot has been orchestrating attacks on neighboring territories to expand her influence. The room exploded. That's absurd. Margot's composure cracked. Marcus, you can't possibly believe. I have documentation. Celine's voice cut through the chaos. Financial records. Witness statements. Communication logs. My father wanted to be certain before making accusations, which is why I agreed to this engagement. She smiled coldly at Damien. Sorry, darling. Nothing personal. Damien looked ready to tear her apart. You lying. Careful. Celine's eyes flashed gold, her wolf rising to the surface. I'm a Luna in my own right, and my pack stands behind me. Attack me, and you'll start a war you can't win. Marcus held up a hand, his expression thunderous. Everyone stop. Celine, these are serious accusations. They are. And Miss Winters has her own evidence, don't you? Celine looked at Arya knowingly. About the night the true queen died. About the fire that nearly killed Prince Cade. About a decade of lies and murder. She knows, Cade thought, his shock palpable. She knows everything. How? Arya started. My father has spies everywhere. Celine's expression softened slightly. Including one very brave doctor who refused to stay silent after he was paid off and relocated. Dr. Marcus Chen sends his regards, by the way. He's been living in my father's territory for 8 years, waiting for someone to ask the right questions. Margot moved toward the door. This is ridiculous. Marcus, I won't stand here and be accused. Sit down. The Alpha King's voice was absolute command. Now. For a moment, Arya thought Margot might refuse. Then she sank into a chair, her expression venomous. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. Someone start talking. The truth, this time. This is it, Cade thought. Do we trust her? Do we have a choice? Arya took a breath. Your Majesty, I need to show you something. Evidence that your first wife, the true queen, gathered before she died. Evidence that Prince Cade has been collecting for 8 years. She felt Cade's surge of fear and love through their bond as she pulled out her phone and displayed the photographs from the medical archives, from his mother's journals, from years of careful investigation. This is everything, she said quietly. Everything they tried to hide. Everything they killed to keep secret. Marcus took the phone with shaking hands. As he scrolled through the evidence, his face went from anger to shock to a grief so profound that Arya had to look away. Elara, he whispered. His first wife's name. She tried to tell me. The night before she died, she tried to tell me something was wrong, and I didn't listen. You couldn't have known, Arya said gently. I should have. His eyes burned with unshed tears. I should have protected her. Protected my son. His gaze fell on Cade, really seeing him for the first time in years. Cade. My boy. What did they do to you? Cade's expression remained carefully blank, but through their bond, Arya felt his anguish, his desperate need to speak to his father, to finally be seen. Not yet, she thought to him. Wait. Margot laughed, high and brittle. You're all insane. Listening to a dead woman's paranoid journals and a brain-damaged boy's fantasies. Marcus, you can't seriously. Be quiet. Marcus didn't even look at her. Damien, did you know about this? Damien's silence was answer enough. I asked you a question, son. She's my mother, Damien said finally. What was I supposed to do? Tell the truth. Marcus roared. Protect your pack. Your brother. Instead, he couldn't finish. The betrayal was too complete. Celine cleared her throat. If I may suggest, Your Majesty, we should secure Queen Margot and Prince Damien immediately. Before they have a chance to. Margot moved faster than anyone expected. Her hand whipped out, and suddenly she was holding a syringe, the liquid inside glowing faintly green. Nobody moves, she said softly. Or Miss Winters dies. She'd crossed the room in a heartbeat, the needle pressed against Arya's neck. Through their bond, Arya felt Cade's horror, his rage, his desperate need to act. Don't, she thought frantically. Don't give yourself away. Not yet. Margot. Marcus's voice was deadly calm. Put it down. I don't think so. Margot's smile was vicious. You want to know what I did? Fine. I'll tell you. I killed your precious Elara because she was weak. Because she would have kept this pack small and insignificant. I tried to kill your defective son because he would have been the same. And now I'm going to eliminate this irritating little wolf who's been causing so much trouble. That's a mate bond severing serum, Celine said, her voice tight. Illegal. Agonizing. It'll kill them both. Cade, Arya thought desperately. If she injects me. I know. His mental voice was strangely calm. Trust me. Please. Margot pressed the needle closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're all going to let Damien and me walk out of here. We have resources, allies, places we can go. And in exchange, I won't inject Miss Winters with enough serum to shred her mate bond and kill both her and whatever poor wolf is unlucky enough to be connected to." She stopped. Her eyes widened as she looked at Cade, really looked at him, and saw the same silver eyes staring back with absolute awareness, absolute intelligence, absolute fury. "No," she whispered. "You're his mate," Cade finished. Cade spoke. His voice was rough from disuse, damaged but unmistakable. Every person in the room froze. "Guards," Cade said clearly, his voice gaining strength with each word. "Protect my mate. Restrain the false queen. Now." The world erupted into motion. Celine's personal guards, because of course she'd brought guards, burst through the doors. Margot lunged with the syringe, but Cade was already moving, his earlier helplessness vanishing as he crossed the room in 3 powerful strides. He caught Margot's wrist and twisted. The syringe fell. Then he had her pinned against the wall, his hand around her throat, his eyes blazing. "You killed my mother," he said, his voice shaking with 8 years of suppressed rage. "You tried to kill me. You made me pretend to be broken, silent, invisible. But I heard everything. Remembered everything. And now everyone else will hear it too." "Cade." Marcus's voice was broken. "You can speak. You've always been able to hear. Why didn't you tell me?" Cade didn't look away from Margot. "Because you chose her over me. You remarried 6 months after Mother died. You made Damien your heir. You looked at me like I was a burden, a reminder of your failure." Finally, he glanced at his father. "How could I trust you with the truth when you couldn't even look at me?" The words hit Marcus like physical blows. I believed she was helping you. That she cared for you. She tried to murder me when I was 12 years old." Cade's voice was flat. "And you never asked questions. Never investigated. Never wondered why the fire happened the same night I'd found Mother's evidence." "Cade," Arya thought gently. "That's enough. We have her." He released Margot, who collapsed to the floor. The guards moved in immediately, silver cuffs snapping around her wrists. Damien tried to run, but Celine's men were ready. He was subdued within seconds. Cade turned and crossed to Arya, pulling her into his arms. She felt his whole body shaking as the adrenaline crashed, as 8 years of pretending finally ended. "I've got you," she whispered. "I've got you. You've always had me," he thought. "From the moment you signed hello." Around them, the palace guards were securing Margot and Damien. Celine was coordinating with her men, already taking control of the situation. Marcus stood alone, looking at his son with devastated eyes. "Cade," the Alpha King said hoarsely. Not now." Cade's voice was still rough, but clear. "I need medical attention. 8 years of not speaking does damage. And I need my mate checked for injuries." He looked at his father directly. "We'll talk later. When I'm ready." Marcus nodded slowly. "Of course. Whatever you need." As they left the office, Arya supporting Cade's weight, she heard Celine say to the Alpha King, "For what it's worth, Your Majesty, your son is remarkable. He's been playing the longest game I've ever seen. You should be proud." "I am," Marcus said quietly. "I just wish I'd realized it 8 years ago." The Pack Hospital was chaos, doctors rushing to examine Cade's throat, nurses treating the minor injuries Arya had sustained in the earlier attack. Through it all, she held Cade's hand, their mental connection a steady anchor. "How do you feel?" she asked as a doctor shined a light down his throat. "Terrified. Relieved. Like I might throw up." "That's fair. Did I really just speak in front of everyone?" "You did. It was dramatic as hell. Very effective." She felt his mental laugh. I've been practicing that moment for 8 years. Had to make it count. You definitely made it count. The doctor stepped back, frowning. Your Highness, the damage to your vocal cords is extensive. The fact that you can speak at all is remarkable, but you shouldn't strain your voice. We need to do physical therapy, possibly surgery. Later, Cade said firmly. Right now, I need to talk to my father. And my pack. They deserve to know the truth. Your Highness. Doctor. Cade's tone was pure royal command. I've been silent for 8 years. I'm not waiting another day. The doctor wisely backed off. Celine appeared in the doorway. Everyone decent? Good. We have a problem. What now? Arya asked. Margot had contingencies. Damien too. They've been moving assets, warning allies. If we don't act fast, they might have supporters who'll try to free them or continue their work. Of course they do, Cade thought grimly. Nothing's ever simple. What do you suggest? Arya asked. Celine smiled, sharp and predatory. We call an emergency council meeting. Right now. Every major alpha in the territory. And your mate here tells them exactly what happened, in his own voice, with all the evidence laid out. She looked at Cade. Think you can handle one more dramatic revelation today? Cade stood, pulling Arya up with him. His voice was rough but steady as he said. I've been preparing for this moment my entire life. Let's end this. Together? Arya thought. Always together, he replied. They walked out of the hospital hand in hand, ready to face the Pack Council and reclaim everything that had been stolen. The Silent Prince was silent no more, and Silvercrest would never be the same. Chapter 6. The Grand Council chamber was designed to hold 200 wolves comfortably. By the time Cade and Arya arrived, over 300 had crammed inside, with more pressing against the doors. News traveled fast in a pack, and news of the Silent Prince speaking was spreading like wildfire. They're staring, Cade thought, his mental voice tight with anxiety. Everyone's staring. Let them stare, Arya replied. You have nothing to be ashamed of. But she could feel his discomfort through their bond. For 8 years, he'd been invisible, overlooked, dismissed. Now every eye in the room tracked his movement as he walked to the front of the chamber where the Council of Elders sat in their ceremonial robes. Alpha King Marcus stood at the center podium, looking like he'd aged a decade in the last few hours. Beside him, in silver chains, Queen Margot sat with her head high and her expression venomous. Damien was chained on her other side, but his posture was different, slumped, defeated, almost relieved. Celine stood with her father's delegation, and she caught Arya's eye with a subtle nod. We're ready, her expression seemed to say. Are you? The head of the Council of Elders, a woman named Vera who had to be approaching 90, banged her staff 3 times. The crowd fell silent. We are here, Vera announced in a voice that carried despite her age, to address the accusations made against Queen Margot Silvercrest. Accusations of murder, conspiracy, and use of forbidden magic. Her sharp eyes found Cade. Prince Cade. Please approach. Cade walked forward, and Arya felt his hand slip from hers. The loss of physical contact made her wolf whine, but she stayed where she was, projecting confidence through their bond. You can do this, she thought. Just tell them the truth. Cade cleared his throat. When he spoke, his damaged voice echoed through the silent chamber. 8 years ago, I lost my voice in what everyone believed was an accident. My mother had just died. The pack was grieving. And I was a 12-year-old boy who'd survived a fire that destroyed an entire wing of the palace. He paused, and the silence was absolute. But it wasn't an accident. The fire was set deliberately. I was locked in from the outside. And the poison that destroyed my vocal cords was the same poison that killed my mother 3 months earlier, only she received a slower-acting dose. The crowd erupted. Shouts, gasps, denials. Vera banged her staff until order was restored. "That's a serious accusation, Prince Cade," she said carefully. "Do you have proof?" "I have my mother's journals. Medical records. Witness testimony. Financial documentation showing payments made to council members who supported Margot's claim that I was unfit to inherit." Cade's voice grew stronger. "And I have 8 years of intelligence gathered while everyone thought I was too damaged to understand what was happening around me." A voice from the crowd. "Pack Elder Thomas, one of Margot's known supporters. You admit to deceiving us? To pretending to be disabled while you spied on your own pack?" "Here it comes," Cade thought grimly. "Yes," he said simply. "I deceived you. Because if I hadn't, I would be dead." Convenient excuse. Another voice, another elder. "How do we know any of this is true? You could have made it all up to steal the throne from your brother." The crowd was turning. Arya could feel it. The suspicion, the anger, the sense of betrayal. They'd pitted Cade for years, and now they felt manipulated. Margot smiled from her chains. Despite her situation, she'd regained her composure. "You see? My stepson is clever, I always said so. Clever enough to fake a disability, to manipulate sympathy, to make you all believe he was helpless." Her voice dripped with false sorrow. "And the cruelest part? He's betrayed every truly disabled member of this pack. Used their struggles as camouflage for his deception." The accusation hit like a physical blow. Around the room, Arya saw deaf pack members signing angrily to each other, their expressions hurt and furious. "She's turning them against you," Arya thought urgently. "Cade." "That's not what happened," he said, but his voice was drowned out by the rising chaos. "He mocked us," someone signed from the crowd. "Used us. Pretended to be one of us when he was whole all along." Silence. Vera's staff cracked against the floor. "The prince will have his say." But Margot wasn't finished. "Think about it," she purred. "A boy loses his mother and decides to fake being damaged to avoid responsibility. To avoid leadership. He hides for 8 years while his brother takes on the burden of being heir. And now, when Damien is about to marry and secure the pack's future, suddenly Cade appears with convenient evidence and a miraculous recovery?" "It's not miraculous," Cade said roughly. "I never lost my hearing. Just my voice. And I..." "Exactly." Margot's eyes gleamed. "You've been lying to us for 8 years. Why should we believe anything you say now?" The crowd was with her. Arya could see it in their faces, feel it in the shifting energy of the room. Margot was good, she'd turned Cade's greatest survival strategy into his biggest weakness. Arya couldn't stay silent anymore. She pushed through the crowd to stand beside Cade, taking his hand despite the gasps and murmurs. "You want to know why Prince Cade lied?" Her voice rang clear. "Because the alternative was death. Because his mother told him with her dying breath to hide, to survive, to gather evidence. Because he was 12 years old and terrified and alone." "And who are you to speak for him?" Elder Thomas demanded. "You're just an interpreter. Hired help." "I'm his mate," Arya said clearly. "And I've seen the evidence. All of it. Would you like to see Queen Margot's financial records showing payments to council members? Or the medical records proving Dr. Chen was paid to lie about Cade's condition? Or perhaps you'd like to hear about the dark magic, the blood sacrifices she's been performing for over a decade to maintain her false Luna status?" That got their attention. The crowd fell silent, horrified. Margot laughed. "Dark magic? Blood sacrifices? Now we're into fairy tales. Marcus, darling, are you going to let this girl accuse me of such ridiculous?" "I've seen the evidence too," Marcus said quietly. All eyes turned to the Alpha King. He looked broken, ancient, but his voice was steady. "I've read Alara's journals. Seen the financial records. Interviewed the guard who attacked Miss Winters. And I can no longer deny what's been happening under my own roof. Marcus. I loved you, he said, and the pain in his voice made Aria's chest ache. Or I thought I did. But looking back, I can see the manipulation. The way you isolated me from Cade. The way you pushed Damien forward and convinced me my own son was defective. You poisoned everything. Everyone. How dare you, Margot hissed. I saved this pack. Your precious Alara would have kept us weak, isolated. I made us powerful. You made us corrupt. Marcus turned to the Council of Elders. I'm calling for a formal trial. Let the evidence be presented. Let the pack decide. Vera nodded slowly. Very well. We will hear testimony. Prince Cade, you will present your evidence. Queen Margot, you will have the right to defend yourself. This council will make a judgment based on pack law and the truth. She banged her staff. We begin now. For the next 3 hours, Aria and Cade presented everything. The journals were read aloud, documenting Margot's crimes in Alara's elegant handwriting. The financial records were examined, showing years of bribes and payoffs. Photographs from the medical archives were displayed on screens for all to see. Through it all, Margot sat in her chains, her expression cycling between fury and cold calculation. She was planning something, Aria could feel it. Stay alert, Cade thought. She's not done. When the evidence presentation was complete, Vera turned to Margot. What do you say to these accusations? They're lies, Margot said smoothly. Fabrications created by a troubled young man who never recovered from his mother's death. Yes, I may have been strict with Cade. Perhaps I pushed him too hard to overcome his limitations. But everything I did was for this pack's benefit. Then explain the blood magic, Celine said, stepping forward. My father's investigators found the sites. 3 locations on Silvercrest territory where ritual sacrifices were performed. 12 bodies. All Omegas. All disappeared during your tenure as queen. Margot's mask slipped for just a moment. You can't prove I had anything to do with. We can, actually. Celine pulled out another folder. We found your ritual tools. Hidden in a secret room in your chambers. They're covered in your scent, your fingerprints, your DNA. And they match the wounds on the victims. The crowd's energy shifted violently. Whispers became shouts. Pack members who'd lost Omega family members to mysterious disappearances were standing, demanding answers. This is absurd. Margot was on her feet now, chains rattling. You're all believing this madness? I'm your queen. You're an Omega playing dress up, an elder said coldly. We had a blood test done from your ritual tools. Your true rank is clear. Margot's face went white, then red with rage. You dare. I dare. Marcus's voice was hollow. Because I need to know the truth. Did you kill Alara? Silence. Margot's mouth opened, closed. For the first time, she looked truly trapped. Then Damien spoke. She did. His voice was hoarse, broken. I watched her do it. The chamber exploded. Margot whirled on her son. You ungrateful. I was 8 years old, Damien continued, speaking over her. She made me watch. Made me help her drag mother's body to the stairs to make it look like a fall. Told me if I ever told anyone, she'd do the same to father. To Cade. To me. Tears were streaming down his face now, years of trauma spilling out. She's been controlling me my whole life. Magic, manipulation, threats. I did terrible things because I thought I had no choice. But watching Cade these past weeks, seeing him finally break free, I realized I could choose too. He looked at his brother. I'm so sorry, Cade. For everything. For not protecting you. For letting her poison you. For being too weak to stop any of it. He's telling the truth, Cade thought, his shock palpable. I can feel it. The bond with Arya lets me sense lies, and he's not lying. Cade crossed to his brother and did something unexpected. He pulled Damien into a fierce embrace. You were a child, Cade said roughly. She manipulated you. Used you. That's not your fault. The brothers held each other while the pack watched in stunned silence, and even Arya felt tears burning her eyes. Margot was screaming now, her composure completely shattered. You traitor. You ungrateful, worthless, I gave you everything. Made you heir. And this is how you repay me? You made me a puppet, Damien said quietly, pulling away from Cade. But I'm not your puppet anymore. Vera banged her staff. We have one more witness. Bring in Dr. Marcus Chen. The doors opened. An elderly Asian man walked in, flanked by Celine's guards. He looked terrified but determined. Dr. Chen, Vera said. You were the physician who treated Prince Cade after the fire. You were also Queen Alera's personal doctor. Tell us what you know. Dr. Chen's voice shook as he spoke. Queen Margot came to me 12 years ago. Said the queen had a stomach complaint, needed medicine. I gave her something harmless, or what I thought was harmless. But she switched the bottles. Gave Queen Alera a slow-acting poison instead. Gasps echoed through the chamber. I didn't know until it was too late. When the queen died, I examined her body and found traces of the poison. I went to confront Margot, and she... He touched his throat. She threatened to kill my entire family if I spoke. Paid me to relocate, to stay silent. But I kept records. Kept evidence. Waited for someone to ask the right questions. And Prince Cade? Vera prompted. She came to me after the fire. Said to list him as completely deaf, even though my tests showed his hearing was intact. When I refused, she threatened me again. His voice broke. I was a coward. I did what she asked. And I've regretted it every day since. You should have come forward, Marcus said harshly. I know. But I'm coming forward now. Queen Margot is a murderer. She killed Queen Alera. She tried to kill Prince Cade. And she threatened anyone who stood in her way. Dr. Chen looked directly at Margot. You said you'd kill my family if I ever spoke. Well, my family is safe now, under Alpha Blackwood's protection. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. Margot's expression went from rage to something far more dangerous, cold, calculated malice. The air in the chamber shifted, pressure building like before a storm. Cade, Arya thought urgently. She's going to. Margot moved. Her chained hands came together, and suddenly the silver cuffs were melting, dark magic flooding through the chamber like poison. Pack members screamed and clutched their throats as invisible hands began choking them. You want the truth? Margot's voice was distorted, inhuman. Fine. I killed Alera. She was weak and foolish and in my way. I poisoned Cade because he was his mother's son, too clever, too observant. And I would have killed Marcus too, eventually, once Damien was secure enough on the throne. Her magic intensified. People were collapsing now, gasping for air. Even the elders were affected, Vera struggling to breathe as her staff clattered to the floor. I will not be caged by lesser wolves. Margot's eyes glowed with unnatural light. I sacrificed for power. I earned this throne. And I will kill every last one of you before I let it go. The magic reached for Arya and Cade. Arya felt invisible hands close around her throat, cutting off her air. Through their bond, she felt Cade's panic, his rage, his desperate need to protect her. Cade, she choked out mentally. Your voice. Use your voice. I don't know how. You're an alpha. Command her. Speak. Something inside Cade shifted. Arya felt it through their bond, his wolf, fractured and broken for so long, suddenly surging forward. The mate bond they shared amplified his power, and when he opened his mouth, the command that emerged shook the very walls. Stop. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a suggestion. It was absolute, undeniable alpha command, carrying the weight of 8 years of suppressed power, amplified by his damaged vocal cords that somehow made the resonance even more potent. The magic shattered. Margot's spell broke like glass, and she froze mid-attack, her body locked in place by the force of Cade's will. Every wolf in the room felt it, that unmistakable pull of an alpha command. Even Marcus staggered, caught off guard by the sheer power of his son's voice. Cade walked toward Margot slowly, and with each step, his command intensified. Kneel. Margot's body obeyed against her will, dropping to her knees. She fought it. Arya could see the strain in her face, the way her muscles trembled, but Cade's power was absolute. You killed my mother, Cade said, his rough voice carrying through the silent chamber. You tried to kill me. You corrupted my brother. You terrorized my pack. He leaned down until he was eye level with her. And now you will face justice. The silver cuffs reformed around Margot's wrists, stronger than before. Additional guards rushed forward, adding chains that glowed with protective runes. Cade turned to the Council of Elders, all of whom were staring at him with a mixture of awe and terror. The evidence is clear. The confession has been given. I ask this council to pass judgment on the wolf who murdered the true queen and terrorized Silvercrest for over a decade. Vera, still recovering her breath, nodded slowly. The council will deliberate. But Prince Cade, that voice. That power. You carry your mother's alpha bloodline. I always have, Cade said quietly. I just couldn't let anyone know. Marcus approached his son, moving like a man in a dream. Cade. That command, I've only heard that kind of power a few times in my life. You're not just alpha blood. You're true alpha. Stronger than me, stronger than, he couldn't finish. Stronger than you realized, Cade said softly. Because I had to be. To survive. To fight back. To reclaim what was stolen. Father and son stared at each other across years of misunderstanding and pain. Then Marcus did something Arya didn't expect, he knelt. Forgive me, the Alpha King said, his voice breaking. I failed you. I failed your mother. I failed this pack. But if you'll allow it, I want to make it right. Cade pulled his father up. Then stand with me. Help me finish this. Through their bond, Arya felt Cade's exhaustion, his pain, his overwhelming relief that it was finally over. She moved to his side and took his hand, squeezing gently. You did it, she thought. It's done. Not quite, he replied. We still need the final verdict. But looking at Margot, bound in silver and rune-marked chains, her power broken, her schemes exposed, they both knew what that verdict would be. The false queen's reign was over. And the silent prince would be silent no more. Chapter 7. The verdict came at dawn. Margot knelt in the center of the council chamber, stripped of her elegant gowns and jewelry, wearing plain gray prisoner's clothes. The rune-marked chains glowed against her skin, suppressing her magic, but her eyes still burned with hatred. Margot Silvercrest, Vera's voice rang out, you are found guilty of murder, conspiracy, use of forbidden dark magic, and high treason against the Silvercrest pack. You are hereby stripped of your title, your rank, and your powers. You will be imprisoned for the remainder of your natural life in the Shadowhold, a facility designed to contain wolves who have violated sacred pack law. The crowd murmured. Shadowhold was a legend, a prison so secure that no one had ever escaped it. Wolves sent there were never heard from again. Margot laughed, high and brittle. You think you've won? You think chains and walls can hold what I've become? She looked directly at Cade. You took everything from me, boy. So let me return the favor. Cade, stop her. Arya thought desperately through their bond. But Margot was faster than anyone expected. She bit her own tongue, blood filling her mouth, and spat, not at Cade, but at Arya. The blood hit Arya's throat and burned like acid. She gasped, trying to scream, but no sound came out. The world tilted as pain lanced through her vocal cords, and she felt something fundamental being ripped away. No! Cade's roar shook the chamber. He lunged for Margot, but the guards held him back. Margot smiled through blood-stained teeth. Blood magic, boy. You can't stop it, can't reverse it without the casters' willing cooperation. And I will never, ever cooperate. Her eyes found Arya, who was clutching her throat in silent agony. The translator should know true silence. Let her understand what she forced my stepson to endure. Let her be voiceless while you speak freely. Poetic, don't you think? She was still laughing as the guards dragged her away, her voice echoing through the chamber until the doors slammed shut. Arya tried to speak, tried to call out to Cade, but nothing emerged except air. Panic clawed at her chest. Through their bond, she felt Cade's horror mirroring her own. Arya. Arya, can you hear me? His mental voice was frantic. I can hear you, she thought back. But I can't speak. Cade, my voice is gone. Healers rushed forward, examining her throat, running tests, trying every healing spell they knew. But blood magic was ancient and twisted, and Margot had decades of practice. After an hour of attempts, the head healer looked at Cade with defeated eyes. I'm sorry, Your Highness. Without the caster's cooperation, there's nothing we can do. The curse is tied to Margot's life force. It will only break when she dies, or if she chooses to lift it. Then we force her to lift it, Cade said, his voice dangerous. You can't torture a prisoner, even one convicted of treason. Pack law is clear. The healer hesitated. I'm sorry. Miss Winters will have to adapt. Learn to live without speech. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Arya saw it in their faces, the pity, the shock, the uncomfortable recognition that the woman who'd helped the silent prince find his voice was now voiceless herself. This is my fault, Cade thought, his mental voice breaking. She did this to hurt me. You're suffering because of me. No, Arya thought fiercely. I'm suffering because Margot is evil. Don't you dare blame yourself. But she could feel his guilt through their bond, heavy and suffocating. The first few days were hell. Arya had never realized how much she relied on her voice until it was gone. She couldn't greet people, couldn't ask questions, couldn't express frustration or joy or anger. Every attempt to speak resulted in nothing, not even a whisper, not even a breath of sound. She tried writing, but her hands shook too much from the trauma. She tried texting, but the words felt hollow and distant. So Cade taught her to sign. They sat in her cottage every evening, and he patiently showed her each gesture, each expression, each nuance of the language she'd taught him. His hands were gentle, his mental voice encouraging. Like this, he demonstrated. This is frustrated. This is angry. This is, I need space. Arya copied the movements, and for the first time since losing her voice, she felt a flicker of hope. This was communication. This was connection. Good, Cade thought warmly. You're a natural. Better than I was when I started. You learned fast too, she signed back, her movements still clumsy but improving. I was motivated. I wanted to talk to you. His mental voice softened. Now I want to understand you. Everything you need to say, everything you feel, I want to hear it all, even if it's not with words. Something in Arya's chest loosened. She signed, thank you. For what? For not treating me like I'm broken. Cade pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. You're not broken, Arya. You're adapting. Surviving. Just like I did. Through their bond, she felt his absolute conviction. And I'm going to take care of you the way you took care of me. I promise. But the pack was fracturing. Support for Cade should have been unanimous after Margot's conviction, but nothing was simple in pack politics. Daemon had been groomed as heir for 8 years, had support from powerful families, had proven himself capable in leadership roles. Prince Cade was hidden for nearly a decade, Elder Thomas argued at a council meeting. He has no experience leading, no established relationships with other packs. Prince Daemon, despite his mother's crimes, has been trained for this role. Prince Daemon was complicit in covering up murder, another elder countered. He admitted to helping dispose of Queen Alara's body. How can we trust him? He was 8 years old and terrorized by dark magic. That doesn't erase what he did. The arguments went on for hours. Arya sat beside Cade, watching him field questions and accusations with remarkable composure. Through their bond, she felt his exhaustion, his frustration, his desire to prove himself. They don't trust me, he thought. They think I'm too damaged, too inexperienced, too much of a risk. Then prove them wrong, Arya replied. Show them the leader you've always been, just hidden. But proving himself was harder than either of them expected. Years of being overlooked had consequences. Pack members didn't know how to interact with Cade as a leader. They still saw him as the silent prince, the damaged one, the lesser son. And Daemon's supporters were vocal. They pointed out his diplomatic successes, his military training, his established network of alliances. They conveniently forgot that most of those achievements were tainted by Margot's manipulation. Marcus watched it all with haunted eyes. The Alpha King had aged visibly in the weeks since Margot's arrest. His hair had gone fully gray, deep lines carved into his face. He'd stopped attending council meetings, stopped making decisions, stopped being a king in anything but name. He's given up, Selene observed during a private meeting with Cade and Arya. The guilt is eating him alive. He thinks if he'd been stronger, smarter, more attentive, none of this would have happened. He's not wrong, Cade thought privately to Arya, though he kept his expression neutral. Maybe not. But wallowing in guilt doesn't help anyone. Selene pulled out another folder. She always had folders. My father's investigation has uncovered something disturbing. Margot wasn't working alone. She had a network. Cade leaned forward. Explain. Dark magic users. Embedded in packs across the country. At least 15 that we've identified so far, maybe more. Selene's expression was grim. They're all women who've artificially boosted their ranks using blood magic. Some are Lunas like Margot. Others are high-ranking wolves in strategic positions, council members, pack doctors, even a few Alpha's advisors. This is bigger than we thought, Arya signed. Much bigger, Selene agreed. She'd learned basic sign language in the past few weeks, claiming it was diplomatically useful. Margot was part of an organized conspiracy. They'd been infiltrating packs for decades, slowly accumulating power and influence. To what end? Cade asked. We don't know yet. But my father thinks it's preparation for something, a coup, maybe, or a complete restructuring of pack hierarchy. These women were all Omegas originally. They're using dark magic to overthrow the natural order. Cade's expression darkened. They need to be stopped. Agreed. But that requires a strong, unified Silvercrest pack. Right now, you're fractured and vulnerable. Selene looked between them. My father is considering withdrawing his support. He doesn't think you can hold the pack together. The words hit like a physical blow. Without Blackwood pack's support, Cade's claim to leadership would be significantly weakened. We can't lose the Blackwoods, Arya thought desperately. They're our biggest ally. I know. Cade's jaw tightened. But how do we prove we're strong when half the pack wants Daemon instead? The answer came from an unexpected source. Marcus called a full pack assembly 3 weeks after Margot's imprisonment. Every Silvercrest wolf gathered in the massive outdoor amphitheater, thousands of them, all waiting to hear what their broken king would say. Marcus stood at the central podium, looking old and tired but determined. I have failed you, he said simply. I allowed a murderer into my bed and my throne. I ignored the suffering of my own son. I let corruption and dark magic flourish under my watch. For these failures, I am deeply, profoundly sorry. The crowd was silent, shocked by their king's raw admission. I am stepping down, Marcus continued. Effective immediately. I am no longer fit to lead this pack. Chaos erupted. Wolves shouted questions, protests, demands. But Marcus held up his hand. However, he said, his voice carrying over the noise, I will not leave this pack without stable leadership. I have 2 sons. Both have been damaged by Margot's schemes. Both have strengths and weaknesses. Both have legitimate claims to leadership. He looked at Cade, then at Damien, who stood on the opposite side of the stage. Cade has my blood, my lineage, and an alpha power that surpasses my own. But he has no experience leading, no established relationships, no proven ability to unite this pack. Cade's expression remained neutral, but Arya felt his hurt through their bond. Damien has experience, training, and the support of many influential families. But he carries the stain of his mother's crimes and his own complicity, however coerced it may have been. Damien flinched but didn't look away. So here is my final decree as Alpha King. Marcus's voice strengthened. Cade and Damien will rule together. Co-alphas. They will learn from each other, support each other, and prove to this pack that they can overcome their past and lead with wisdom and strength. The crowd exploded with reactions, some approving, others furious. But Marcus wasn't finished. You have 6 months. 6 months to show this pack you can work together. 6 months to root out the remaining corruption in our ranks. 6 months to prove you are worthy of leadership. He looked at his sons. If you fail, the Council of Elders will choose a new alpha from outside our bloodline. This family's rule of Silvercrest will end. Co-alphas? Arya thought. Can that even work? It has to, Cade replied grimly. Damien approached Cade slowly. The brothers stared at each other across years of rivalry, manipulation, and pain. I don't expect you to forgive me, Damien said quietly. I don't deserve it. But I want to try. To be better. To help you fix what our mother broke. Cade studied his brother for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. 6 months. We try. If it doesn't work. It will work, Damien said firmly, gripping Cade's hand. I won't let her win. Not again. The crowd watched as the 2 princes, so different, so damaged, so complicated, stood together for the first time in 8 years. This is going to be a disaster, Arya thought. Probably, Cade agreed. But it's our disaster. We'll figure it out. That night, Arya woke up violently ill. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was vomiting, her whole body shaking. Cade was there immediately, holding her hair back, his mental voice panicked. What's wrong? Should I call a healer? Arya, talk to me. I don't know, she thought weakly. Something feels different. Wrong. Or maybe not wrong, but... Another wave of nausea hit. When it passed, Arya sat back against the bathroom wall, trembling. Cade's eyes widened. When was your last heat cycle? Arya froze. She counted back mentally, and her heart stopped. 8 weeks ago. Before we completed the bond. Before everything happened. Arya. Cade's mental voice was awed and terrified. You're pregnant. I can't be. We've been so careful, and I'm on suppressants, Anne. Mate bonds override suppressants. You know that. He pulled her close. We're having a baby. The reality of it crashed over her. A baby. In the middle of a leadership crisis, a fractured pack, and dark magic conspiracies. A baby when she couldn't even speak, when Cade was fighting for his throne, when everything was chaos. This is the worst timing, she thought. Or the best, Cade countered. Air. Proof that our bond is real and strong. Something to fight for. I'm terrified. Me too. He pressed his hand against her still flat stomach. But we'll figure it out. Together. They sat together on the bathroom floor, overwhelmed and exhausted and completely unprepared for parenthood. Through their bond, Arya felt Cade's love and fear and absolute determination to protect them both. Then something strange happened. Warmth spread from Arya's stomach, like the baby was responding to its father's touch. And with that warmth came a sensation in her throat, not pain, but a tingling, like something was being loosened, unwound, broken apart from the inside. Cade, she thought urgently. Something's happening. The warmth intensified. The rune-marked chains of Margot's curse, invisible but ever-present, began to crack. Not all at once, not completely, but enough that Arya felt the first stirring of sound in her damaged vocal cords. She opened her mouth experimentally. Caw. The sound was barely a whisper, rough and painful, but it was there. Cade's eyes went wide. Arya? Did you just... Baby, she whispered, her voice raw but real. The baby. It's breaking the curse. They stared at each other in shock and wonder. Then Cade was laughing and crying at the same time, pulling her close, his mental voice and actual voice overlapping in a chorus of joy. Our child is already powerful, he thought. Already fighting for you. Already protecting its mother. Arya could only manage a few words before her voice gave out again, but those few words were enough. The curse wasn't completely broken, Margot's magic still held, though weakened. But the baby inside her, carrying the blood of two powerful alphas, was waging its own war against the dark magic. Life was fighting death. Hope was fighting despair. And their unborn child was already proving to be stronger than any curse Margot could cast. 6 months, Arya thought, touching her stomach gently. 6 months to prove Cade can lead. And 6 months until this baby is born and breaks the curse completely. We can do this, Cade replied. We've survived everything else. We'll survive this too. Outside their cottage, dawn was breaking over Silvercrest territory. A new day, a new beginning, a new life growing in the darkness. The silent prince and his voiceless mate had been through hell and back. But they were still standing, still fighting, still loving each other with a ferocity that no curse could touch. And soon, they would have a child who carried the strength of both their bloodlines, a child who would change everything. The real battle was just beginning. Chapter 8. 3 months into the pregnancy, Arya woke up and said her mate's name clearly for the first time since the curse. Cade. Not a whisper. Not a rasp. A real word, spoken with real sound. Cade bolted upright in bed, his silver eyes wide. Say it again. Cade. She smiled, touching her throat in wonder. I can speak. It's still rough, but I can. He kissed her before she could finish, his joy flooding through their bond like sunlight. When he pulled back, there were tears on his face. Our baby, he said reverently, placing his hand on her rounded belly. Our powerful, incredible baby. Babies, Arya corrected through their mental link. They discovered at the last ultrasound that she was carrying twins, a revelation that had sent Cade into a spiral of excited panic. Plural. Our powerful, incredible babies, he amended, grinning. Over the following weeks, Arya's voice strengthened. It wasn't instantaneous. Some days she could speak for hours, others only in short bursts. But the curse was definitely breaking, eroded from within by the alpha bloodline of the twins she carried. The pack healers were fascinated. We've never seen anything like this, the head healer admitted during one of Arya's checkups. The baby's auras are so strong they're literally dismantling blood magic. If they can do this in utero, imagine what they'll be capable of once they're born. That's what I'm afraid of, Arya muttered, and Cade squeezed her hand. We'll teach them control, he thought reassuringly. Together. While Arya's voice returned, Cade and Damien were revolutionizing pack leadership. The co-alpha model was unprecedented. Most packs had one alpha, one clear chain of command. Having two created complications, conflicting orders, divided loyalties, potential power struggles. But the brothers were determined to make it work. They divided responsibilities based on their strengths. Cade took internal affairs, pack welfare, dispute resolution, resource management, and the integration of disabled pack members into all aspects of pack life. Damien handled external relations. Alliances with other packs, border security, trade agreements, and the ongoing investigation into Margot's dark magic network. You're better with our people, Damien had said during one of their planning sessions. They trust you. They see what you overcame. I'm better at politics and strategy, Mother trained me for that, at least. She trained you to manipulate and deceive, Cade corrected gently. Yes. Which makes me very good at spotting it in others. Damien's smile was bitter. Fight fire with fire, right? The arrangement was far from perfect. They disagreed constantly. Cade thought Damien was too aggressive in negotiations. Damien thought Cade was too idealistic about pack integration. But they learned to argue productively, to compromise, to present a united front even when they privately disagreed. And slowly, the pack began to trust them. The breakthrough came when they jointly dismantled one of Margot's dark magic cells. Selene's investigators had tracked a suspected practitioner to a neighboring pack, a high-ranking Luna who'd been using blood magic for over a decade. Damien negotiated access to the territory while Cade coordinated the tactical response. When they moved in, it was seamless, Damien's diplomatic skills preventing a territorial conflict, Cade's strategic planning ensuring no civilians were harmed. They captured the Luna and found evidence linking her to 6 other practitioners across 3 states. This is what co-leadership looks like, Elder Vera announced at the next council meeting, her tone approving. Strength through balance. Different skills, unified purpose. Not everyone was convinced, but support was growing. And as Cade and Damien continued to work together, the opposition slowly crumbled. Arya found her own role in the new pack structure. With her voice returning and her unique position as both mate to an alpha and someone who'd experienced voicelessness, she became the bridge between the pack's deaf community and its hearing members. She established a communication center, trained interpreters, and worked with Cade to create the first truly inclusive pack policies. Every pack announcement will be made in both spoken word and ASL, Arya announced at a community meeting, her voice clear and strong. Every pack event will have interpreters. Every public space will have visual alert systems in addition to audio ones. No one will be excluded or overlooked because of how they communicate. The deaf pack members wept. For the first time in Silvercrest history, they were being centered, valued, included as full members rather than afterthoughts. But Arya's most ambitious project was still to come. A school? Damien looked skeptical when Cade presented the proposal. For disabled wolves? Brother, we barely have the budget for our regular pack school. Then we'll fundraise. We'll reallocate. We'll make it work. Cade's voice was firm. I spent 8 years isolated because this pack had no infrastructure for someone like me. No one should experience that again. It's not just about disability, Arya added, her hand resting on her belly. The twins were active today, their movements visible beneath her shirt. It's about teaching all our children that different doesn't mean less. That there are multiple ways to communicate, to learn, to contribute. Selene, who was attending the meeting, leaned forward. My father will fund it. The Blackwood Pack believes in this initiative. Consider it our investment in Silvercrest's future, and in making sure other packs follow your example. Damien looked between them, then sighed. Fine. But I'm handling the political rollout. Some of the conservative packs are going to see this as weakness. Let them, Cade said. We'll prove them wrong. The Silvercrest Academy for all learners opened 4 months later, just weeks before Arya's due date. It was a beautiful facility with state-of-the-art technology, trained staff, and a curriculum designed to accommodate every learning style and ability. At the opening ceremony, Cade stood before the assembled pack and spoke. His voice still rough but powerful, his hands moving in perfect synchronization with his words as he signed everything he said. My mother once told me that the strongest packs are the ones that value every member, regardless of their abilities or limitations. For too long, Silvercrest forgot that truth. But today, we remember. Today, we commit to ensuring that every child, every wolf, every member of this pack has the opportunity to thrive. The crowd erupted in applause. Both auditory and visual, as hundreds of hands waved in the deaf community's sign for celebration. Arya watched from her seat, tears streaming down her face, one hand on her enormous belly and the other signing to Cade, "I'm proud of you." He signed back, his eyes shining, "We did this together." The formal abdication ceremony was held on the autumn equinox, 6 months to the day after Marcus had announced his intention to step down. The entire pack gathered in the Great Hall. Thousands of wolves witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. Marcus stood at the center in his ceremonial robes, looking more at peace than he had in months. "I have been Alpha King of Silvercrest for 32 years, he said, his voice resonating through the hall. "I have led through prosperity and hardship, peace and conflict. But my greatest failure was not seeing what was happening in my own home. Not protecting those I loved most." He looked at Cade with profound regret. "My son, I failed you in every way that matters. I didn't see your strength because I was blinded by my own grief and guilt. I didn't fight for you because I was too weak to face the truth. And for that, I will carry shame for the rest of my life." Cade stood and approached his father. Through their bond, Arya felt his complex emotions, anger, forgiveness, grief, understanding, all tangled together. "You failed," Cade said clearly, his voice carrying. "But you're here now. You're acknowledging it. That's more than most get." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Probably not. But I'm giving it anyway." Cade placed his hand on his father's shoulder. "Because I don't want to lead from a place of anger. I want to lead from a place of hope. And that starts with letting go of the past." Father and son embraced, and there wasn't a dry eye in the hall. When they separated, Marcus removed his ceremonial crown and held it up. "I hereby abdicate my position as Alpha King. I pass leadership to my sons, Cade and Damian Silvercrest, who will rule as co-alphas. May they lead with wisdom, strength, and the courage to build something better than what came before." Damian joined them at the center. The three men stood together, former king, silent prince, manipulated heir, all of them damaged, all of them healing. The Council of Elders came forward with 2 new crowns, simpler and more modern than the traditional heavy piece Marcus had worn. Vera placed one on Cade's head, then one on Damian's. "By the authority of the Council of Elders and the will of the Silvercrest Pack, we recognize Cade and Damian as co-alphas. May their rule bring prosperity and justice to all." The pack howled, a sound that shook the very foundations of the building, a sound of acceptance and hope and new beginnings. Cade spoke first, his voice strong and clear as he signed simultaneously. "I stand before you not as the silent prince, but as someone who learned that strength comes in many forms. That communication is more than just words. That leadership means seeing and valuing every member of this pack, regardless of how they speak or don't speak, how they move or don't move, how they present to the world." He paused, making sure his signs matched his words perfectly. "I promise to lead with empathy, to build systems that include rather than exclude, to ensure that no child ever feels invisible the way I once did. This is my vow to you." Damian stepped forward next. "I stand before you as someone who was manipulated and controlled, who made terrible mistakes and must live with them. But I also stand as someone committed to redemption, to using everything I learned, good and bad, to protect this pack and help it grow." His voice wavered slightly. "I promise to lead with integrity, to be transparent even when it's uncomfortable, to never again let fear or manipulation guide my choices. This is my vow to you. The brothers clasped hands and raised them together, a united front, a new era, a promise kept. Arya went into labor 3 weeks later, 2 weeks before her official due date. It started during a council meeting about border security, of all things. She was sitting beside Cade, taking notes, when her water broke all over the expensive conference room carpet. "Oh," she said, looking down at the puddle. "That's inconvenient." Cade's face went white. The babies are coming. Someone call the healers. Get a car. No, get 2 cars. What if one breaks down? Should we? Cade. Arya grabbed his hand, speaking clearly despite the contraction gripping her abdomen. Breathe. We practiced this. Right. Breathing. I can do breathing. He was definitely not breathing normally. Damien snorted. Brother, you've faced down dark magic practitioners and political conspiracies. You can handle childbirth. Those things made sense. Cade said frantically as he helped Arya stand. There's going to be 2 of them. 2 tiny people. What if I drop one? What if? You'll be fine, Selene said, appearing at Arya's other side. Come on, let's get you to the medical center before one of your powerful alpha babies decides to make an appearance in the hallway. The birth took 12 hours. 12 hours of pain and fear, and Cade gripping Arya's hand so hard she thought he might break it, his mental voice a constant stream of encouragement and panic. You're doing amazing. You're so strong. Oh goddess, is that normal? Should there be that much? Cade, I swear, if you don't calm down I'm going to. Another contraction cut off her thought. Finally, as dawn broke, the first baby arrived, a boy with a shock of dark hair and lungs that could wake the dead. The healers placed him on Arya's chest, and she felt an immediate, overwhelming surge of love that made everything else disappear. He's perfect, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. He's not crying, Cade observed through their bond. Is that normal? The healer checked the baby quickly, then smiled. He's deaf, Your Highness. He can't hear himself or anything else. But he's perfectly healthy. Arya and Cade looked at each other, and Arya saw her own realization mirrored in his eyes. Their son was deaf, just like Cade had pretended to be, just like many of their pack members truly were. He'll never feel alone, Cade said fiercely, touching the baby's tiny hand. He'll grow up in a pack that signs, that includes, that values him exactly as he is. 20 minutes later, the second baby arrived. A girl who came out wailing, her cries echoing through the medical center. She could clearly hear just fine. Twins, the healer said, laughing. One deaf, one hearing. Both with alpha auras so strong I can feel them from here. Your Highnesses, you've created quite the pair. Arya held both babies, exhausted and elated and overwhelmed. Through her bond with Cade, she felt his love, his awe, his absolute terror at the responsibility they'd just taken on. We're parents, he thought, sounding stunned. We're actually parents. We're actually parents, she agreed. What do we name them? They discussed names for months but never decided. Now, looking at their children, the names came easily. Elara, Arya said, touching their daughter's soft hair. After your mother. Cade's eyes filled with tears. And Marcus. For the boy. After my father, not for who he was, but for who he's trying to become. Perfect, they thought simultaneously through their bond. The pack celebrated for 3 days. Gifts poured in from across the country. Other packs sent representatives to congratulate the new co-alphas on their heirs. But the moment Arya treasured most came a week after the birth, when they were alone in their quarters with the twins. Cade sat on the floor with Marcus in his lap, signing to the baby who couldn't yet understand but watched his father's hands with intense focus. Arya sat beside him with Elara, who was currently screaming at the top of her very functional lungs about something: hunger, discomfort, or maybe just the existential horror of being a week old. Your sister has opinions, Cade signed to Marcus, his expression fond. Lots of opinions, Arya agreed, adjusting Alara to nurse. The baby latched on immediately and quieted, making satisfied little noises. Marcus waved his tiny fists, and Cade caught one gently. You know what's amazing? Our son will grow up learning sign language from birth. He'll never feel like it's a limitation or a secondary form of communication. To him, it'll just be normal. And Alara will grow up bilingual, Arya added, switching Alara to the other side. Speaking and signing as naturally as breathing. They'll teach the other pack children. It'll just be part of who they are. Cade turned to look at her, his silver eyes soft. You did this. You changed everything. We did this. Together. No. He shook his head. I was hiding, surviving, playing the long game. You were the one who saw me. Who talked to me. Who taught me that being silent didn't mean being invisible. His voice grew rough with emotion. You taught me the most important language of all. ASL? Arya asked, smiling. How to be seen. Cade leaned over and kissed her gently, careful not to disturb either baby. You taught me that communication isn't just about words. It's about connection. Understanding. Seeing people for who they really are, not what they appear to be. Arya felt tears prick her eyes. The hormones were brutal, and everything made her cry lately. You taught me that too. When I lost my voice, when I was terrified I'd never speak again, you showed me that silence doesn't mean powerlessness. That there are so many ways to be heard. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching their children. Marcus had fallen asleep in Cade's arms, his little chest rising and falling peacefully. Alara was still nursing, making contented sounds. What should we teach them first? Cade asked softly. What sign should be their first word? Arya thought about it. Love, she said finally. The sign for love. Because that's what all of this has been about. Finding love, protecting love, building a world where love matters more than power or status or whether you can speak or hear or shift properly. Cade nodded. Love. And family. He demonstrated the signs, his hands moving in the graceful gestures they'd both grown to cherish. Because they'll grow up knowing that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who see you, who fight for you, who teach you that you're enough exactly as you are. When did you become so wise? Arya teased. I had a good teacher. He kissed her again, then signed with one hand while holding Marcus with the other. I love you. More than I ever thought possible. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. I love you too, Arya signed back with her free hand, Alara still cradled against her chest. Thank you for teaching me that being voiceless doesn't mean being powerless. That silence can speak volumes. They stayed like that as the sun rose fully over Silvercrest territory, two former outcasts, now co-alpha and mate, with their powerful twin heirs sleeping peacefully in their arms. Outside their windows, the pack was waking up. The Silvercrest Academy for All Learners was preparing for another day of classes. The council was meeting to discuss new inclusive policies. Deaf and hearing pack members were working side by side, signing and speaking, understanding each other. And in the high-security prison 3 states away, Margot sat in her cell, her curse broken by the very bloodline she'd tried to destroy, her dark magic network in ruins, her legacy one of failure and destruction. But in the heart of Silvercrest, in a warm nursery filled with love and hope, a deaf boy and a hearing girl were learning their first lesson, that communication comes in many forms, that family means acceptance, and that being different is not the same as being less. Cade looked at Arya, at their children, at the life they'd built from the ashes of conspiracy and pain, and he spoke, his rough, damaged voice full of wonder. We did it. We actually did it. We did, Arya agreed. And this is just the beginning. Because the silent prince was silent no more. The voiceless translator had found her voice again. And together, they were teaching an entire pack that the language of love, acceptance, and true communication transcends any barrier. Spoken or signed, heard or seen, perfect or imperfect. In the end, what mattered most was being seen, being heard, being valued. The end.